right. Is the New York Fire Department racist? They're facing a federal discrimination trial because black firefighters are allegedly discriminated against and treated horribly within the fire department. So there are several things that the black firefighters are alleging.
None of which can be true, because I watch Rescue Me, and on Rescue Me they got white and black and Latino firemen in New York, and they get along great.
By the way, 90% of the New York Fire Department is white.
Jesus.
That's amazing. Okay.
Now, in all seriousness, I'm going to explain what the real problem is in a second, but some important details in the lawsuit here.
So they're alleging that black firefighters are referred to as the N-word, regularly. Also, usually when it comes to deciding who will do the menial tasks, they ask who wants to be the N-word for tonight.
Right, because if you do menial tasks, that's where you are, and they will call that person that word even if they're white or whatever they might be.
Right. In addition, the guest list, which featured a black former New York Mayor David Dinkins, had been defaced to include rap stars.
Right, and a number of other things had been defaced, obvious racial overtones, and sometimes not even overtones, it was just flat out racist, N-word, etc. And this black firefighter who was tired of it, and he eventually brought this forward. One of the things he also complained about is when he became lieutenant at the same time as a white firefighter, and apparently you're supposed to start as an acting lieutenant immediately. They let the white firefighter do that, but not him, and the list goes on, right? And now since he's bringing this forward, people aren't going to be happy with him to begin with. That's going to combine into this toxic brew of not good feelings at the fire department here, etc. But does anybody really think he's making it up? Now, I think you could make a case that, hey, maybe that's his experience, but it's not the experience of all blacks in the New York Fire Department, and certainly not what all white firefighters do in New York by a long shot, right? But I think he genuinely experienced those things, and I think it's a serious and genuine problem, and instead of dismissing it, they should address it.
Right, and they are addressing it. They're facing the federal lawsuit, and we'll see what happens and what the outcome will be of that. But I think it is an important thing to investigate. And again, it's another one of those issues where the population of the United States thinks that we don't have a race problem at all, when we do. We do have situations where racism does occur, and those situations need to be investigated and not brushed off as if racism is not a problem in the country at all anymore.
And let me explain as to why there might be this inherent conflict in the first place. Because, look, African Americans make up about 25%, I believe, of New York City. Latinos are near that percentage, and they make up a tiny percentage of the firefighting forces. Anna said 90% are white. Now, why does that system perpetuate itself? Well, it's because oftentimes if your dad's a firefighter, you become a firefighter, or your uncle was, et cetera, right? And if they were all white in the beginning, they continue to be white if that's how the job gets passed down. And it happens in a lot of professions. It also happens to in the firefighting field. Now, the problem is blacks and Latinos go, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair to us. We got to be able to break through in some way. Whereas whites think, wait a minute, you're taking a job from my son or from my nephew, and it creates this conflict. So we've got to be able to address that in a smart, decent, and fair way without both sides going to war. JR.
I just hope, as the allegations get investigated, that there isn't, and it's natural to do this, that there isn't a feeling of, oh, it's the New York Fire Department, and we have this feeling from 9/11 of they were, it was so heroic what they had to do, that there isn't a kind of, it's off limits because of what they have been through already. Because that's the first thought that came to me.
Right, but black firefighters went through it just as much as white firefighters did. So why should they get doubly screwed?
Yeah. No one wants to think that the fire department itself, the entity of it, has done anything wrong.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's true. I bet that becomes a bit of a factor, right? But, it drives me crazy when people can't, separate out issues, right? So, for example, are we 100% behind the firefighters when they go for health care coverage and the Republicans blocked it, because they're like, oh, you're a first responder and you got some sort of cancer. Who cares? No, that's crazy. Of course they should have that. Now, maybe one of those same guys is involved in a case where he's on the wrong side and, the discrimination, whatever it might be, or several of them are. Okay, that doesn't mean you should take away their health care, but it also doesn't mean that they've never done anything wrong, right? They're not some angelic creatures, etc. They're human beings. And so when they're right, you back them. When they're wrong, You pointed out. If only the country ran this way.
Right.
Oh well.